All right. Welcome back to the Clean Mom Edit podcast. Today's conversation is for the woman who wants to feel better in her body, have more steady energy, and stop feeling like wellness has to mean doing everything perfectly. I'm joined by Courtney, a nutritional therapist, a certified personal trainer, Pilates instructor, and host of the Nourished Living podcast. With over 15 years in the health and wellness space, Courtney combines science-based nutrition, movement, and nervous system support to help women feel healthier in ways that are actually realistic and sustainable. So as a type 1 diabetic and a mom, she also brings lived experience into the conversation, especially when it comes to blood sugar, anxiety, digestion, and learning how to support your body without extreme routines or restrictive thinking. So, Courtney, I'm so glad you're here because I know this conversation is going to be one so many women need.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
I love it. Well, let's dive in. My first question for you is a lot of women feel disconnected from their bodies, especially after motherhood. Like, where do you think that disconnect usually begins and why is that?
Right. Well, of course, you experience so many changes, starting from conception onward. And after that, you're really not going to be the same person. So not only are you meeting your new baby, but you're also meeting a new version of you. And that is after any pregnancy, right? Not just your first, every single time after that. So I think it is hard mentally, it's hard physically because we now have different routines. We are trying to take care of a new baby and we get put on the back burner, which to some degree is okay, right? Because we do need to care for this little baby. But it's harder to then get back to ourselves after that. Even after, maybe nap schedule is established, right? And you have like these little windows of time for yourself. It's still hard to just get back to taking care of yourself. And it's going to look different than pre-baby. And so I think we're trying to cling to what once was, but we need to grow and evolve and adapt to making these new changes that fit everyone's lives, but not forgetting to take care of yourself. So it's obviously easier said than done, but we really can't forget about ourselves. But I feel like we also just need to embrace the changes that come our way because so many things are new and different and they're not going to be the same, but that's okay.
I love that you said embrace the changes. I feel like that's one thing that, going through my journey of motherhood, that's really changed my perspective whenever I did just like accept life for what it is. Like, okay, I'm not going to be getting sleep right now. Like I'm going to have to, sacrifice, not going to, a girls' night or, whatever it is. And not saying you have to do that every single time, but just like I'm thinking of situations for myself of like, every baby, every pregnancy, sometimes, pregnancy doesn't, end up in a baby. Like every pregnancy changes you. It's an identity shift. And like just being able to accept that. I feel like I saw this quote on Instagram the other day that I've like really loved. And I probably have said this probably 10 times. So if, people are, listening to me on here, like, or if I've seen you recently, I probably have said this to you because it's just something that's really resonated with me. And it's like toddler and baby stage are 2% of your life.
Wow, that's it?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Okay, well then I can not sleep for 2% of my life, knowing that, the other 98% I'm going to be able to sleep. Like it just makes you, I don't know, just like absorb it more, and like you said, like just accept it and like figure out, how you're going to be happy, today.
Right. Yeah. So another point in that is not to wait. You don't have to say like, okay, well, once the baby's one or once the baby's two, then I'll be more well rested. I'll start taking care of myself better. Like, no, you just have to do what you can do today. Not everything needs to be done at once, and doing something is better than nothing. Everyone's routine is going to look differently, so I'm not going to say like do this, this, and this, but just do what you can to take care of yourself mentally and physically.
And don't you, I guess, do you agree that like micro habits are better than no habits, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because it's even if you just started with one habit, but you were able to do that consistently every day, that is going to make a huge change rather than nothing.
Yeah. Like just a 10-minute walk like every single day. And then like I feel like the kids get older and like you said, like your time starts to expand, like they, sleep a little bit longer and they're more like predictable. And then you're like, oh, well, I can have, then you can start expanding those micro habits. Like, oh, I can do a, 20-minute walk now, or I can do a 10-minute walk and, 10 minutes of, a face mask or, whatever it is, or, prepping meals. I feel like you just gotta start small and then build, because like I feel like these big shifts after motherhood are when you lose it all. Do you feel like that?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Things are constantly changing, right? Change is the only constant. And so, yes, we need to, and even if, your routine has to shift and change again, that's okay. But at least you're kind of like laying the foundation and still prioritizing yourself. It can be so easy to just do the bare minimum and forget about ourselves, like not even drinking water throughout the day or anything like that. So, yes, just prioritizing what you can, and it's okay if it's not your 2 hour routine that you're used to.
Yep. I think that was like a big mindset shift for me, is like a 3-minute vibration plate is better than, 30 minutes. That is, I do that, once a week actually. And then I beat myself up because I didn't do it. So I'm like, that shift of just committing to 3 minutes, like I feel like has changed everything for me. One thing I want to talk to you about, because I love, nervous system regulation and support, but I haven't done a ton of, research with like the blood sugar side of this. So together, like, can you explain how those two are more connected than most women even realize?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with our blood sugar, when we eat carbs by themselves, so let's say you had an apple or a bag of chips, when we eat carbs by themselves, our blood sugar tends to spike, right? We didn't have any fat or protein to slow our digestion. So we end up with this blood sugar spike. And that is actually stressful to our bodies because our body likes to be in homeostasis, and our body tries to, when there are fluctuations, our body has to counteract those, and it works really hard to get us back into that homeostasis. So when we have that blood sugar spike, our body has to start releasing a bunch of insulin to try to get us back down into that range. So the more carbs or sugar that we had, the more insulin has to be released, which then makes it a higher likelihood that we're going to go into a blood sugar low after that. And during that low, so that is kind of like that 2 p.m. crash feeling. You will probably start to feel tired, you're like brain fog, you can't really think or concentrate well. And that's also when like anxiety creeps in, irritability, you might feel short with people. And that blood crash is also stressful on our body because, again, we're not in homeostasis and our body needs to kind of go back into like fight or flight mode to try to get us back into that range. So, both of those situations are just stress on our body. And since once you're high and all that insulin has to be released and we go into that low, That low is again when we start to crave like sweets and more carbs, because since we're tired and we have no fuel on board, we really are looking for carbs or sugar for that quick energy source. So then it can just turn into this like blood sugar roller coaster all day long. You then go from that low right back into a high, back into another low, then you're craving carbs and sweets again. So it really can be a vicious cycle, but it can easily work out differently. It can easily be solved with adding protein and fat with those carbs. So I want to be clear, I'm not saying don't eat carbs. We need carbs. However, if you pair them with fat and protein, you can skip the roller coaster. So if you still wanted to have that apple, you could pair it with some peanut butter, some almond butter, and some cheese. So you're getting protein and fats. If we're looking more at like meals like breakfast is like a really easy one where you just want to grab and go. So you get a bagel, you get a muffin, a donut, right? And then it's like you're starting on the roller coaster early in the morning. So breakfast, even if like your go-to is toast, if you could pair an egg or a sausage and some avocado, or if I know a lot of people don't like eggs, but I mean, and you don't need to have eggs for breakfast, right? It's just
Chia
quick
pudding, wouldn't
protein.
that be a good
Yes.
option?
Yes, you could do chia pudding with some coconut milk too is great because then you're getting some more fat.
Ooh.
And so the protein and fat help to slow that digestion and prevent the spike. And so without the spike, then you have less likelihood of a low as well. And then you're keeping your nervous system a lot happier because your body doesn't need to then go into that fight or flight mode.
Such a good explanation. Um, would you say, because, whenever I actually had like, whenever I started my like coaching, mentoring, business 3 years ago, I had a lot of like, I was mainly focused on like fitness and nutrition, and now it's kind of evolved. I feel like the more
Right?
that I get to, into
Yeah.
all of this. But a lot of my clients were, talking about like waking up in the middle of the night at like 2 or 3 o'clock. Like, is that what's happening as well? I knew it was their blood sugar spiking, but didn't really know like, how to regulate that. I guess, like, is that in correlation? Am I correct on that? And like, would you say that how would you recommend regulating that there?
Yeah, that could absolutely be a blood sugar low in the middle of the night. So, let's say a lot of times what'll happen is you'll have dinner and then like maybe an hour or two later you have a dessert, which is going to be most likely carb heavy, sugar heavy. So when you go to sleep, you're probably in a blood sugar high, but your body is still working while you're sleeping, and it has to again start releasing that insulin to make up for that high. And so when you wake up, could be during that blood sugar low, because again, that's like a fight or flight situation for your body. So it wakes you up. And so what I like to recommend is if you could pair your dessert somehow with protein or fat, or choose something that already has like nuts in it or some peanut butter, or even, I mean, it might be weird, but you could even, have some slices of cheese with your dessert or something, right? Like, you don't need to go by the rules here. We just need to like best support your digestion and blood sugar so that you then don't have to wake up at that time. Because also around 4 a.m. is when our cortisol starts to be
Mm.
released, because cortisol, even though it's a stress hormone, it helps with our sleep cycles. So it's typically starting to be released around 4 a.m. so that we naturally wake up a few hours after that. So it can be hard to go back to sleep after that if you've been woken up by a blood sugar low, but then the cortisol kind of is starting to be released also. So, and of course, we know that sleep is so important for recovery and energy and being able to think and keeping up with our kids. So, whatever you need to do at night. Again, I'm not saying don't have the dessert, just try and pair it with some protein and fat so that you can get a good night's rest.
I love that recommendation. It's so funny also, like my son, he actually slept through the night for the very first time last night, 17 months in.
Wow.
But he woke up at 4 o'clock, and now that
Oh,
like,
okay.
so we're regulating his nervous system. I realize that like I'm the co-regulator of that. So it's a lot on me as well. So we're on a big high, but that makes sense of like why he woke up at 4 because of the cortisol. So just, I feel like we're on our last little hump of like, regulation there. But such good knowledge of like, yeah, we're not telling you not to eat the dessert after dinner,
Right.
but just pair it with protein and fats. So I love that. Most women and moms these days, like I'm just going to be super real and raw, and even myself, like, I've dealt with my fair share of anxiety, overstimulation, like just constantly feeling like depleted. I mean, that is why this platform is here, because of, that story of my own personal side. And I know that many people are, can relate. So what are some early signs that you can share that their body is actually asking for support and not more discipline there?
Some of the symptoms that I quite often see when people are, experiencing the overstimulation and anxiety and whatnot, but might not necessarily know it, could be like heart palpitations or heart racing,
Oh,
jaw clenching. It could even manifest as like teeth grinding at night, because we tend to hold like a lot of tension in our shoulders and neck, and everything's kind of connected there. So that could be, like jaw
like
clenching, teeth
TMJ
grinding.
too? Would that be like okay?
Yeah.
I feel like I hear tons of women and myself, TMJ, and I'm like, I think that that's in correlation to the
Right.
two.
Yeah. And some other like less common ones could be feeling cold, or like your hands and feet are cold due to like poor circulation. And one of the biggest ones is actually, so our brain and our gut are like very, very closely related, right? They call our gut the second brain. They're in constant communication. So when there's a lot going on up here, could be like racing thoughts, or just like worrying or having fears, right? Now, like with kids, you're worried about them falling or choking or, anything like
Well,
that.
and for first time new moms, like worried that you're gonna
Right.
like bring this baby home and like, I thought I would like, be able to kill them. Like, how do I keep this baby
Right.
alive? Like being a new mom and any
Yeah.
stage too. I feel like they can't talk to you. So you're worried about like what internally is going on. So for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Crying too much throughout the day. Oh, something must be wrong. And so when all of that is just going on in your head nonstop, a lot of the time that could lead to like diarrhea and stuff. So most of the time, a lot of time when people have IBS, it's it can be linked back to anxiety and stress. So there's if you have digestive issues and seem to be getting overstimulated, that might be something to look into as well. And sensitivity to light and noise, I feel like, is another one that can be overlooked.
So good. I feel like nowadays too, like a lot of people are being diagnosed with IBS. And I feel like they're just getting thrown in a pool because like doctors don't know how to, deal with this. And so I'm like, I want more people, to know that like starting with your, like, it is a nervous system regulation, dysregulation, is
Yeah.
how you get over that hump. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Yes, 100%.
For women trying to improve their digestion and energy and mood, like what are some simple daily habits that they can create that are going to like build the biggest shift first, would you say?
So, starting with digestion, when we are in the fight or flight state, we cannot digest and properly absorb the foods that we're eating. So, you might be eating like the best diet for you and not like keto or carnivore or whatever, but just like the best foods that really support your unique body. But if you're eating while you're stressed, you are not going to reap all those benefits. So for moms, it might be best if you can eat maybe like when the kids are sleeping. You know, luckily, like when they're young, there's a little bit more leeway with like nap time and stuff or getting up before them. Because once the kids are up and they're crying or screaming and you're trying to just like shovel down some food real quick, that's going to be a stressed state for you. Or even just trying to eat at the same time with your kids, they need this, they need that. Then you're up and down, right? So if you can even just carve out 10 minutes for yourself to eat a meal to guarantee that you are in the parasympathetic nervous state of rest and digest, like honestly, that will do wonders. And you're also going to then be being able to use and enjoy all those benefits from the nutrients you're eating. So what you can do, like if you say you carved out those 10 minutes and you sit down to eat, before you start eating, you can take 5 deep breaths and deep belly breaths where you can actually like see your stomach expanding on the inhale and then contracting on the exhale. That can help to get you then into that rest and digest state to ensure that you are not stressed, right? So, and it might not happen every day, but if you could at least like maybe start with your breakfast in a relaxed state, that may help kind of carry your momentum throughout the day. Again, so for energy and mood, that's going to come back more to like your blood sugar regulation. And we already chatted about this, but honestly, I say it on repeat, I feel like all the time, but being able to have a well-balanced meal or snack of fats, proteins, and carbs, that is what gives you like actual lasting energy. Like if you needed energy for just the next 30 minutes, then yeah, you could have just the carbs, right? But then you might encounter that blood sugar crash afterwards. But if you are able to pair your protein, fats, and carbs well, you should actually have energy for up to 4 to 5 hours afterwards because food is fuel, right? You should feel energized after you eat. And that ratio is going to look different for everyone based on age, gender, activity levels, all of that. So I can't just tell you exactly what to do, right? However, I would just say, go heavy on the protein and fat rather than tons of carbs and just see how that goes. And you might need to play around with it, but it is really valuable to notice how you feel after meals. If you noticed that, hey, I was hungry like an hour later, or I felt so lethargic, then we need more protein or fat. But if you felt like you had energy for a couple of hours, then that's something you can repeat and know that you will feel good afterwards. And, with your mood, it really helps to have your blood sugar regulated and not like all over the place because that is draining on us and it ends up using more resources than if we were able to just kind of stay at our baseline.
I love that. Those are 2 critical habits that I feel like are actually doable, for moms. And I love that you said like the time to eat. I think that that's been such a push down habit of moms. Like, I mean, I myself, like, find myself like standing up eating, and I can tell,
Yeah.
like, once I do that, like, I don't feel as nourished afterwards. Like, I do feel like the times where I am actually sitting down and focusing on my food and slow chewing and like
Mhm.
really like embracing like the tastefulness of the food, I can tell it changes my energy and my mood. So like especially new moms, one thing I actually just did an interview and we were talking about systems, and one of her feedback was like time blocking like 10 minutes into eating, like eat your meal. Like you need to be
Yeah.
intentional about it, because we know that we
Mhm.
will put ourselves on the back burner. And the biggest factor here also that I want to mention is like, do not scroll your phone while you eat your
Mm.
food,
Yeah.
because that's going to bring natural stress. Like, that is why our
Mhm.
phones are here, is to, not, I mean, they just bring a lot of stress on to us because of, the algorithm and, whatnot. But I love that you mentioned those two areas. And my little sister just asked me the other day, like, how, cause I used to like, have a very, rigid, meal plan. Like, I used to, know what I was eating, for breakfast and lunch and dinner. And now I just do it like very intuitively, because I feel more
Mhm.
confident into, like, I know how to just build a balanced meal. And I guess for those women who don't feel the confidence yet to build a balanced meal, like, what do you suggest for them to get to that point? Because I do feel like that's a learning curve as well.
Yeah, it definitely is. And like I said, I mean, it could even change with like your different cycles and phases and
Mm,
all of that too. So I would say when you're planning your meals, look at your protein first. So that could be, whether that's like chicken, turkey, fish, beef, chickpeas, lentils. Just start with that as your main thing and then add stuff in after that. So, vegetables. Oh, also, I feel like a lot of people don't know that fruits and vegetables are carbs. So, knowing that helps as well. So, when I say protein, fats, and carbs, your vegetables can count as those carbs. It's not necessarily like a lot of people think about like the starches, like, okay, I need to have
right.
potatoes or rice, and it's like you can have those, but also vegetables will count as carbs as well.
Right.
So start with your protein in mind, and then I would say add in some vegetables or fruit, and then and then add some nuts or avocado, or even if you roast your vegetables, you can add like coconut oil or avocado oil, which also helps to give like a little bit more of
Mm,
like a more flavor for those
yeah.
who might not like vegetables. Or you can even add in a sauce as your fat, because there's usually like a fat base, like olive oil or something. So,
Mhm.
and again, it's gonna be a little bit trial and error, even with just finding foods that you like together. This might be something new for you. So again, just really try to start with that protein in mind first and then build off of that to make sure you're getting everything. But this also will go for snacks as well. I feel like snacks is almost harder because
Mhm.
the stuff that is like snack size that we
Mhm.
can grab and go keep with us in our diaper bags is usually going to be carb heavy. So to be able to pair carbs with a protein and fat as well for those snacks, I like to have like beef sticks. Those, don't have to be refrigerated. Trail mixes with lots of nuts and seeds and dried fruit. I mean, you can get the M&M ones, but there are other options out there. You could make your own trail mix. String cheese, that has to be refrigerated, but if you're just kind of grabbing and go, even, and it doesn't have to be something that's grab and go. You could even do like a quesadilla with cheese on a corn tortilla with some guacamole. It's like just because we've been like programmed for like certain snacks and all of that. It doesn't have to be like that. It could be like a little small meal, I guess you could say, as long as there are the protein, fats, and carbs.
Yeah. My snack choices have changed tremendously. I feel like throughout my life, like I will eat, like we have salmon in the fridge and like that was like from last night, like that was a snack for me rather than, a granola bar. Like I would rather eat like leftover protein
Yeah.
than, you know, a granola bar or whatnot. Question for you. So obviously, my audience is majority moms. Kids and their meals, like this plays into, their nervous system and their blood sugar. But I feel like, kids are a little bit harder, like pickier eaters, like they do gravitate towards, those, sweets and whatnot. And it is trainable. But I'm still working on it as well. Do you think I read lately that a good supplement for like if, there is a deficiency in fats is omega-3s. So I actually bought like fish oil that I give my kids every day. And I do feel like even like their speech and like my son and his like health issues, like I do see a difference. Is that in correlation, do you think?
Yeah, it definitely could be. Yeah, that omega-3, I think the recommendation for adults at least is like eating fish 3 to 4 times a day, which
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I might know like one or two people that actually meet that. So if you do not, then yes, a supplement would absolutely help. And, you know, as as his tastes change, you might be able to incorporate more. So it's like, it's not like, oh, once you're on this, it's just going to be, you're on it for life or whatever. But supplements do help to fill in the gaps. And yeah, kids can be picky. They will only eat one thing for a month and then they'll never touch it again. So I feel like you kind of do what you have to do during that phase. And of course, we're introducing things that are good for them and whatnot, but we can't make them eat things. So, yes. And I would also say, too, I mean, I'm sure you can track like most tantrums back to just eating carbs, right? So, if we're able to balance their foods well to set their nervous system up for success, like that will immensely help as well. And, again, like I give my kids fruit snacks and all of that, but I pair it with something else that's going to counterbalance it, right? Like they love those like pouches that's just like apples and fruits and stuff. And so I'm not going to deny them that because they enjoy it and it makes them happy. But we then balance things out as best we can.
Yeah. Like not just having mac and cheese is like the total, meal, I feel like. And I feel like that's one thing that I've been trying to like do better at is like, I mean, my kids eat what we eat and we eat some pretty funky things. And so it's just like, I just feel like but that's also why, my oldest child, she dealt with, tantrums and it's crazy that like the shift. Like the food is really such a key factor into their behavior. So I'm glad to hear it from a professional that I'm on the right track. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
you work with, women in, very sustainable ways. Like, I feel like that's one thing that like I'm always preaching. I feel like that's part of like your branding is, sustainability. What do you think women need to stop believing about health in order to actually feel well long term and not look at this as just like a short term project?
So two things here. I would say don't believe everything you see on Instagram, right? Because, of course I'm in the like health and wellness space and I also like learning more about that. And so my feed has a lot of fitness and this or that, right? And you don't need to only eat 1,200 calories and work out 6 days a week and meal prep your whole day Sunday to feel good, right? But feel like sometimes, I don't know, maybe other people's feeds are different, but I feel like I see that. And that is so far from the truth. So there are, like general guidelines and stuff, but everyone's physiology is different. So like what is going to work for me is not going to work for you. And even, your spouse, your partner, whoever that may be, it could look different. So it's okay to do things differently, have different healthy habits, eat different foods. Like that is okay. So with that being said, also, we kind of touched on this earlier, but you don't need to do everything all of the time. Like the small things add up. And honestly, the smaller the better, because then the more likely you are to be able to do it on a more regular basis, right? And even I think things like drinking water and just going outside are so highly not overrated, underrated, or what am I trying to say? They're overlooked as to how like beneficial they actually are to you. With the overstimulation and anxiety and all that for all humans, like moms and kids alone, I feel like you can just feel an instant shift if you just go outside. And I know that can be weather permitting, right? Like not everyone can always go outside, but take advantage of it when you can, because being out in nature with fresh air, sunlight, if it's there or not, and not being around the screens and all the distractions and stuff, like it honestly does so much for us. And I think because it's so simple and so easy, it's like, oh, that's not going to do anything. But small things like that really do help. And I don't know, like if I have to be inside all day, I am not the same person as if I'm able to go outside, go for a walk. It doesn't even have to be a walk. If you just stand outside for 5 minutes, you will feel so much better. So as far as what I would love for women to know is that, what works for someone who you follow on Instagram might not work for you. That's okay. You need to find what does work for you and what makes you feel good. And that's all that matters, is what makes you feel good and healthy and strong, so you can be the best person, best mom. And you don't need to do everything. Just find small things that you can do consistently.
Yeah. I feel like I used to be that typical wellness girly, as you can say, like, 5 a.m. working out, doing a HIIT workout, having my meal plans, eating, this much protein, tracking it in my fitness pal. Like I've done and did that. And I feel like once I started pulling it back and slowing things down is when I really started to see like the inflammation come off. And like now it's just like I don't even have to think about it. Like it's just embedded in me of like how to like live this life. And it's just so much more enjoyable and I can be so much more present. So like I am so supportive of like what you just said. And I will say that this is my little plug of like human design. I don't know if you've looked into it at all, but like if you guys want to know your specific rhythm, like knowing your human design will help you get to that answer way faster than just trial and erroring it. So I definitely encourage you to check that out, because I know that that's changed my life. That's obviously what I teach and educate now. And it just goes into, it just supports, your nutrition and your nervous system and blood sugar, in correlation, just giving you clearer answer rather than trying to, figure it out on your own. So, well, this has been amazing, Courtney. So much great information. And I want my audience to even just take Courtney just gave us a ton of actionable items and information. Like my goal is just to have like one thing from, this podcast and take it with you. And then once you master that thing, and then come back to this episode and, try something else. But like what she said is such a game changer, and food, sleep, sunshine are the three most important things that you can do for your body and your family and your nervous system and your career and in every aspect of life. Those are the foundations. So Courtney, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, and I'm sure that we will talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.